Thank you very much, George, and welcome to everyone. I have the agenda up there. I hope everybody can see that.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what we're hearing about a new Apple Watch 6 this fall, the iPhone 12 this fall. I want to spend some time talking about Wi-Fi 6 routers, which are new in the last year. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about subscriptions on your devices, a little bit on iCloud backup and blocking scam calls, and then we'll have Q&A. And after each of these little sessions, Sheeta will take 2 or 3 questions and pass them along to me. So with that said, I want to go right to the Apple Watch and what we're hearing there. Now, I have to qualify this whole presentation on the watch and the iPhone 12 in that these rumors are believed to be true. They come from very reliable sources that usually have an 80 to 90% success rate in knowing this stuff. I find that quite amazing. That's been true for the last several years. And the thing I find amazing is when Steve Jobs was at the helm, you didn't hear. And how fast this stuff changes is just last night, I got an email, actually from 2 of our members, stating that Apple had just filed patents to do blood pressure monitoring on the watch. Doubt that this will come on Watch 6. It'll probably be a Watch 7 feature. The article was very unclear. It came from Forbes. And when I went into the blog area to check with the normal people that know about this stuff, nobody has commented on it yet. But it just came out last night. The other big one that would be the grand slam that's been talked about for some time is that if the watch could measure glucose levels for people who have diabetes or pre-diabetic or what have you. There's been nothing said about that this year, but whenever they figure that one out, that's going to be game over. So with that said, these rumors change all the time. But here are the ones that we think are definitely coming this year. Sleep tracking and improved longer battery life. And one of the ways that they might do the sleep tracking to enhance the battery life is when you go into sleep tracking mode at night, it'll shut down everything else on your phone to conserve, or on the watch to conserve battery. And just have that sleep tracking part of the watch working. So that was one thing that I read, and that seemed to make some sense. But the sleep tracking, I think, is finally going to come. Longer battery life, pulse oximeter is going to be coming. That's been strongly rumored. Now, the interesting thing about that is the very first watch had that capability built into it, and it was never released. And when you read about it, when I read about it, the reason why it hasn't been released over these years is they haven't perfected it to the level where they can get FDA approval, or they think it's worthy of FDA approval. But I think they've worked out those kinks, because this one is on almost every blog that it's coming, and I really think that'll be very important. And also, that's been mentioned with the virus, because one of the things that happens with the virus is your pulse ox starts to go down. Even it's one of the early symptoms that you don't even know, and your pulse ox should be running around, 95 to 98, and all of a sudden people are running around, their pulse ox is 80, and they don't even realize it. So that would be an interesting thing, and it will be a great monitoring tool. There will be a new chip this year. Last year there was not. Basically, the Watch 4 and the Watch 5 had the same chip. All they did was made the Watch 5 capable of always on display, and they have the compass and I think built in for the gyrometer. But this will be a new chip, and it'll be more powerful, and I think it'll help with that battery life. There'll be also, there's been rumored that there's going to be mental health abnormality detection. I'm sure that my wrist will be vibrating continually. But the way that they're going to do that, from what I read, is they'll be taking your pulse ox, they'll be taking your heart rate stuff in the background, and when they start to see things getting out of whack, they're going to send you a warning saying, hey, you might be approaching some kind of an anxiety attack level. And that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. So I think I'm really excited about this new watch, because I'm really excited about the longer battery life, sleep tracking, and the pulse ox monitoring. Those are the three things that really hit home for me. So with that, that's all I know on the watch right now. Probably the watch and the iPhone, because of the virus, they might not come out in September. Might be November, might be December. Have to wait and see. And with that, do you have any questions on the watch, Sheeta?
I see none. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask about this? Nope. You have to go ahead, Mitch.
Okay, good. So let's go on to the phone. This is what the phone is going to look like. It's going to look like the iPhone 4 and 5, which a lot of people thought was the greatest design ever. It's more of a squared off edges. I circled a couple things in green. The charging adapter in the right-hand side of the screen will remain unchanged. And then the camera on the back of the Pro line will have a fourth sensor that I will be talking about more as we go on. So that's just a picture of what it looks like, one of them that I have here. Okay, and there will be 4 phones that are introduced. Now there's 6 on this photo. The numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the 4 that are going to be introduced. The white phone is the small phone that they just introduced a couple weeks ago. And then the second phone, the one in green, is what now is it will be the replacement for the iPhone 11. The one in black, number 3, will be the replacement for the 11 Pro, and the one in blue will be the replacement for the iPhone 11 Pro Max. The number 1 is a smaller version of the current iPhone 11. So there'll be 4 new models, and the first 2 will be basically identical in terms of functionality and photography and so on. And it'll just be a difference in size. And then the next 2 will be the Pro line. Now, notice that number 4 is blue, and that's the new color that's very strongly rumored to replace the green that was introduced last year in that line. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Now, this shows last year's Pro and this year's Pro line. And again, you can see how the edges are really squared off on the blue model there. And they're rounded, of course, on the one this year. You can also see the photo sensor where there's 4 photo sensors on the blue one there, which will be the new one, and 3 on last year's model. Okay, a lot of notes that I had to put on here. All of the models, all the new models will run on the A14 5nm processor. We currently are running on a 7nm processor. And so that'll be a faster processor, faster, smaller, less power consumption. And that's thanks to going to the 5 nanometer processor. They will all have that same processor. Now, the refresh rate will be 60 megahertz on the 2 entry-level models, and on the ProLine models, we may see 120 megahertz. Now, I say may because, again, just last night I got an email that this might not be coming this fall. The sensor or the screen, all of these will be OLED screens. But the ProLine screens, the OLED screens, are a higher quality and they come from Samsung. And it was pointed out in this latest email that I got that they are in short supply, and Samsung is giving that supply to the Android people who already have some of this stuff out. Now, whether that comes to pass and we don't get this year, I don't know. But I did put a qualifying note down there in the bottom right. Promotion may not come due to supply issues. There's also a lot of discussion on how they're going to do this, because going to 120 hertz resolution, it means that when you're flipping back and forth through the screens, it's like instantaneous. There's no lag time. When you're seeing a movie or something or playing a game, there's no interruptions. It's just really fast. And it takes a lot of battery juice to do that. So what they're talking about is having a variable megahertz function on that ProLine. So at sometimes you might, if you're looking just at an email, it might lower it down to 10 or 15 megahertz to save on the battery, and you won't even notice the difference. But as soon as you go and start doing something that requires the 120, it'll click right in. And that's been something that has been indicated that it's been hard to develop and perfect. So we'll have to see what happens here. I know a lot of people are wanting this 120 megahertz processor, and I know that the competition has had it on a couple of their models for a while, so we'll see. Okay, now I've got a bunch of slides with this particular gentleman on here. I do some digging. These all come from a blog site called Info from Everything Apple Pro. So if you go into YouTube's and put in info, or just put in Everything Apple Pro, you're getting all the videos that this guy posts. His name is there, Philip Corey. That was sort of hard to find, but I found it. And that's all I'm going to say about the site and about him, but I did want to give out his name because he is on several slides. We can't show his videos from YouTube's because that would infringe upon patent rights when we publish our videos on our site. But in this first one, low light AF, there will be low light AF improvements of 2 to 3x thanks to a larger sensor, LiDAR, and general software improvements. Now, AF is autofocus. So the autofocus is going to be 2 to 3 times faster, which will be a welcome improvement. It's pretty good right now, but that'll be a welcome improvement. The LiDAR that I commented on in the bottom, that is the 4th sensor. And LiDAR is laser detection augmented reality. That's what that stands for. And so people say, well, what does that exactly do? Well, if you think about the iPhone 11, 10, anything that has Face ID, that's working on a LiDAR type of sensor where you're holding that phone up in front of you, moving your head around, and it's taking a 3D image of your face for identification. Well, they're putting this LiDAR sensor, they've improved it significantly. They're putting it on the back of the camera, and it won't just work a foot or 16 inches away from your face. It supposedly is going to work 12 to 15 feet away. And so it will enhance significantly portrait mode. They're thinking that it will even work, you'll even be able to do portrait mode movies. That's one of the things that's been rumored. But this should be a great enhancement to photography, having this LiDAR sensor on the back.
Mitch, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
Eckert, we seem to be having some, I'm not having the problem, but a couple of our members are saying there's a problem with the sound. I think it's either possibly your own internet connection or it's a problem with Zoom itself. I think I'm not having any problem with sound, and I'm assuming we haven't had any comment except from Marty Dorio and John Levy.
Well, I just turned up my sound a little bit, so hopefully.
No, your sound's fine.
Okay.
I mean, at least for me it is. Okay. I'm sorry. Eckert, did you have anything to say in relationship to that?
No, I think your assessment is correct. I believe it's a general problem that the quality of this meeting today is not as good as the previous ones. It may be a bandwidth situation, but overall the sound works well. Also, the picture quality as far as the screen sharing is concerned, those pictures are perfect. They're very good. So if some individuals have problems, I think that's probably related to their own environment, but I don't believe it is necessarily a Zoom issue. It could be their own environment. As we are talking, there is a person I just admitted for the second time with a first name John. And would that person, John, please rename himself and add the last name. I'm giving that person 2 minutes. If that person does not add his last name, he will be removed. We cannot tolerate attendees who just show up with their first names for security reasons. I hope you all understand. And I'm going to be very rigorous about it. If that person does not quickly add his last name, he will be thrown out. And that applies to everyone. Please understand, we are in a situation where we have been hacked a few weeks ago. We don't want that to happen again. So please, everyone should be courteous enough to add the last name to the first name. John is just not acceptable. I'm sorry to say that, but I have to interrupt the meeting even for that. So John, please be more careful next time. We have now wasted 2 minutes on the meeting because of you.
Okay. Just one other thing. Some other people are showing that they're having sound issues. Most of us don't appear to be having it, and we have no idea other than it might be your own particular router quality or whatever that's causing it. But it doesn't seem to be a universal issue. And I'm sorry for your loss of sound. If you can hear me.
Excuse me, George, I think it is a universal issue. There are too many people, so it could be Zoom itself, but can we please continue on with the meeting?
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. I'm sorry for those people who can't hear very well. But the next slide, there are going to be some major EIS improvements for night mode photography. EIS stands for Electronic Image Stabilization. So there are going to be some major improvements for electronic image stabilization in night mode, and that will be good. Okay, here's a picture of the camera. It's quite amazing what's involved in these cameras. But low light, slow motion, there will be low light, slow motion improvements. We'll move on. Long exposure, segmentation, and white balance, face in particular, will be improved. And portrait mode photography, LiDAR enhanced plus portrait mode video might finally be possible. And again, I gave an explanation up in the, I wrote an explanation as to what LiDAR is. I'll read that off. LiDAR is a method for measuring the distance by illuminating the target with laser light and measuring the reflection with a sensor. Differences in the laser return time and wavelength can then be used to make digital 3D representations of the target. And this will be really of great interest to those people into augmented reality and gamers and so on initially. But it will also be, I think, a great enhancement to portrait photography, to be able to reach out further. And hopefully, if we can do it in videos in portrait mode, that would be great as well. HDR stands for high dynamic range. Believe it or not, when I was going through this and I captured these slides, the stuff at the bottom was on the slide, and I had to go back in. I thought, what's HDR? I had to actually Google it to find out what all this stuff was and put notes at the top so I would remember. But smart HDR is going to get better, less noise reduction, which is graininess in the photo, in semi-low light situations. Now, what HDR does is that takes like 3 photos at one time, different light levels, and combines them into the best possible photo for the situation. So that's what HDR is, and there will be improvements, particularly in low light situations. And sort of a busy slide of pictures, but the big thing is that we will now have 3x telephoto lenses on the Pro line. The last 2 years, there have been 2x with no degradation in the quality of the photo. Now that's going to 3x. Now you can zoom out on the current models, on the Pro models, to 10x, but you lose quality. That is going to go to, you can zoom out to hopefully 25 to 30x. But again, you'll lose quality. And this is an area that where Apple is behind the competition and that they're working to get caught up on. Stuff I read, this 3x is a great improvement, and probably in the next couple of years, you'll see that it go to at least 5x, maybe higher. Night mode for telephoto lenses will be enhanced. And this is a summary slide. So this is a pretty busy slide. So if you remember, I said they're going to introduce 4 models. And the names are sort of confusing because the small model is going to be called the iPhone 12. The sister to that model is going to be called the iPhone 12 Max. And both of those, if you notice in the first line under the name, both of them, it gives the screen size, and it gives that they'll have a BOE OLED screen. Now, that BOE LED screen is somewhat less resolution and quality than the Samsung ones in the Pro line, which you'll see in a second. We'll go over that. They will have, the first 2 models will have 4 gigs of memory. And this is where a rumor just came in last night that this might not be true. Everything up to now in the last few weeks said that they're gonna all start out at 120 gigabytes of memory. And on the first 2 models, you'll be able to get a 256. And then you'll be able to get up to 512 on the Pro line. Now, just last night, I qualified this with a comment down below that somebody came out and said that this 125 gigabyte starting storage level may go down to 64, which is where it is today. That would be a big disappointment to me, and I think a lot of people. But so we'll see what happens. This stuff changes all the time. Don't know if that rumor was true, but I felt like I should put a qualifier in there Again, all this stuff is subject to change. The first two models will be aluminum. They'll have dual cameras, and the pricing has been pretty well established that they'll be starting at $649 and $749, and go up from there. Now on the Pro line, again, you'll notice that Samsung is the provider of the OLED Super Retinal XDR with ProMotion and 10-bit color depth, which is millions and millions of colors. And again, this is what came into question last night as to whether they're going to have that ProMotion, be able to get that ProMotion display out of Samsung. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully they will. A lot of people think that that's very important, and I certainly do. That they'll come with 6 gigabytes of memory. Again, the rumors currently are they'll be starting at 128, 256, and 512. I hope that's right. This year they're at 64, 256, and 512. But again, that 64 came back into question last night. They will be stainless steel models. They'll have triple cameras with the LiDAR sensor, and the pricing will be basically about the same as last year. And that is the final slide that I have on the iPhone 12, what we seem to know about it, what we think might be happening. So if anybody has questions about the iPhone 12, and these are expected to come because of the virus, they might come in October rather than September. They might come in October, maybe November. I've heard as late as the first of the year. We're just going to have to see what happens. Any questions, Sheeta?
So far, I don't see any hands raised, but there are a couple of questions that came in through the chat. Marty, would you like to ask your questions? If so, unmute yourself. If not, I'll ask them. Okay, we're going to, while he's thinking, John Levy, go ahead. Unmute. Unmute. There you go.
Marty, can you just remind us of the differences between the stainless steel and aluminum bodies?
Well, in general, aluminum is lighter than stainless steel. The stainless steel is thought to be a higher quality and more durable. And other than that, I'm not technologically savvy to the differences. I know on the watch, I get the aluminum model and it seems to hold up very well. The stainless steel, I had one stainless steel watch, and particularly in the silver color, if you look at it 3 feet away, it looked perfect. But if you got it right up by your eyes, you'd see these real tiny scratches on it, sort of like you would on a gold watch after you wore it for a while. And I've just been using the aluminum watches because every year I get a new watch. So why spend the extra?
Thank you.
Okay, Dale is next. Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, I have a question back about the watches. If you're using your watch to monitor your sleep, when do you charge it?
Well, that's the big question, and I think they're going to hopefully speed up the amount of time to charge it. I mean, I know if I throw mine on my charger for half an hour, it charges it up to about, I don't know, 75 or 85%. And I can do that while I'm taking a shower in the morning. There's also supposed to be improved battery life, so maybe you will not have to charge it. Maybe you can charge it at some other point during the day. But that's definitely going to be an issue because nobody's come out there and said, hey, your battery life is going to last for a week. I don't think they're there yet on that kind of technology.
Okay.
Okay, Sheeta, this is Eckhart. As a host, I don't have the ability to raise my hand. So, but I would like to ask a question nevertheless.
Go ahead.
When you said that you were disappointed that the storage level would go down to 64, I'm a little bit surprised. The reason why I'm surprised is I think I'm having a 64 gigabyte phone. I'm only using about 40, and I use a lot of the cloud. And I think there's a tendency of that all devices really need less storage because you play so much in the cloud. And I think I'm interested in the 64 gigabytes because of the lower price. Why should I pay for a 128 gigabyte phone when I only use about 50? So that was my question. Maybe you have a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I have a lot of apps and a lot of things on my phone. I too use the cloud whenever I can. I have a 128 gigabyte model, and I'm using 53 gigabytes. So if I'm using 53, could I have gotten by with a 64 model? Yes, but that's just getting a little bit too close for comfort for me. I'd rather have a little wiggle room. So when they said they were going to go to 128 at no additional cost, because I can tell you, if the 64 comes in there, don't expect these prices to go down.
Okay,
I think it would be an easy way for them to make a few extra bucks if they went with that, because there are a lot of people out there like me that, you know, I'm using 53 or 54. I'm just not, some things are requiring more and more storage, even though a lot of it goes to the cloud. I don't want to get in a situation where I have to start deleting stuff on my phone because I've gotten a 64 and I was sort of close. Does that make sense, Eckert? I know you're still muted there.
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Mitch, I have a question from Marty, and I think you did say something about this. The first question is, any 5G chips contained in the iPhones?
5G, yes, they're all going to have, okay, that's a good point. I forgot to go over that. They're all going to have 5G capability. Let me go back to that slide. Okay, they will all have 5G capability. If you start researching 5G, there's a couple things that you're going to find out. Number one, it's not going to be everywhere at all next year. It's probably going to take 2 or 3 years to get this really rolled out, although the phone companies would like to tell you it's everywhere already. The problem is, and we've gone over this in other meetings, is that, you know, the 4G towers can be, you know, a mile apart or half a mile or 2 miles apart. I don't know what it is, but it's pretty far. And the 5Gs have to be much closer, like 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 500 feet, whatever. That's the one problem. So you're gonna need many more of these boxes on poles. They're small boxes, but nonetheless, you're gonna need them. The other thing is there are 3 levels of 5G. There's a lower level that will give you a 20 to 30% more speed than 4G. And then there's a mid-level that'll give you even more. And then there's a fast level. The first 2 levels will be capable on the lower end 2 phones, as far as I could find in my reading. The fast level, where available, will only be able to be picked up by the Pro line. You can think about it this way. Think about 3 different trains. One's a train that stops 15 times going from Philadelphia to New York. One is a train that goes from Philadelphia to New York and stops one time. And the second one is a bullet train that goes from Philadelphia to New York, and it's very fast. So those are the three levels of 5G. And I hope that clarifies it for you, Marty.
His next question is there anything about edge-to-edge screen on the iPhones?
Edge to edge?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Because the squared off edge, that's one of the reasons why the screen size is going to be very, very slightly bigger. It will be edge to edge. You will still have the notch at the top but it'll be a smaller notch because of the way they're moving some things around. And there's some rumors that on the Pro Max, there might not even be a notch. That's been rumored out there, but I don't know that to be completely true.
Okay, thank you. We have a
Also, I want to
question.
mention on the edges, the way those edges
Right.
are designed, like on iPhone 4 and 5, they've actually done drop tests. They actually do drop tests at Apple, and they handle drop tests a lot better with that design than they do with the rounded design that we have today.
All right, we have a question from Alan. Go ahead.
I have an iPhone 11 and it's incredibly slippery. I mean, it slips off my lap, it slips out of my pocket, falling to the floor continuously. Are they ever going to make these surfaces a little roughened up so they don't slip around so much?
I don't think they're going to do that because they want you to buy their $50 to $60 cases. You get a case like the one I'm holding up off of Amazon for $10 or $15. I mean, this thing is pretty grippy. I've got another one that I use. It's like a leather one, and it's pretty grippy. I always use a case. I know a lot of people just refuse to use a case once they break their screen a couple times because it slips out of their hand. They end up getting a case, but if you shop different cases, you'll find some are more grippy than others, and that's what I would suggest you do.
Thank you.
All right, no more questions. I see no more hands raised, so Mitch, you can proceed.
Okay. Let's go down to, oops. Okay, here's where we left off. And now what I want to talk about is I want to talk about Wi-Fi 6. Nothing to do with the phones. This has to do with routers. And again, I'm going to give a quick review of what the router is. And this has to do with a single router. The ones I'm going to present are single routers because you can buy modems that have a combination of the modem and the router all in one device. I never do that, but some people do, and they're very popular. But what I'm going to present are single routers. And the evolution of these, as I only put up the last 10 years, but we had Wi-Fi 4, which was in the middle of the screen there, 802.11n. And then it went to Wi-Fi 5, 802.11ac. And then last year, Wi-Fi 6, a new version, was introduced as a standard Wi-Fi 802.11ax. These things are showing up now in the market. They're very expensive. And the reason I want to go over this is if you are having router problems, which I did, when I replaced my router 2 or 3 weeks ago, I just thought I'm not going to replace it with a Wi-Fi 5 router. That's what I had before. I want to be ready for the new goodies that are coming. So I went ahead and got the Wi-Fi 6. So I'm going to go over a couple of these. Okay, and we'll talk about why would you want a Wi-Fi 6 router. And the Wi-Fi 6 router is much faster. If you're using a Wi-Fi 6 router with a single device, the maximum potential speed should be 40% higher with a Wi-Fi 6 compared to a 5. It accomplishes this by more efficient data encoding, resulting in a higher throughput. Mainly, more data is packed into the same radio waves. Now, this is waves in your house. This is waves from the router to your device. So it's not necessary. This isn't, if you've got 200 gigabytes coming in from Comcast, it's not going to all of a sudden make it 280 gigabytes. It's going to make it faster from your modem router to your device. And again, if you think about what's a modem, what's a router, the modem is a square box. I don't have a picture of one here, but it's a square box, and that's where your cable, if you're on a cable system, comes in and hooks to. And then typically an internet or an Ethernet cable goes from that modem into the router. And the router then spreads the signal throughout your house, apartment, condo. In my case, I have a mesh system. A mesh system means that you have more than one router to get better coverage. And so I have one that's directly connected to my modem, and then one that is connected to that main one with just through the air. And again, it's a very rapid connection because it's this new technology of Wi-Fi 6. So here's what one of the brands looks like. I forget which brand this is, but if you go on to Amazon and type in Wi-Fi 6 routers, you'll come up with several. And I'm not promoting any particular one, but here was one. And as you can see, this one was introduced in September of 2019. Okay, this is the one that I have. I got this at Costco. It was only available online. It's not cheap, $600. Somebody asked, well, why are they so expensive? Well, I had the Linksys Velop Wi-Fi 5 system. It was 4 of these towers that are smaller. These are actually bigger towers than the old system. And when that came out 2 years ago, when I got it, it was $550. It's now, if you want to buy the Wi-Fi 4 version or 5 version, they're down to $400. But this 6 version is now $600. Fortunately, I bought it at Costco. I was having trouble after 2 years. I was having trouble with one of the modules. Contacted Linksys. Their customer service is outstanding. They had me reset everything a couple different times. It kept failing, so I just packed it all up, took it to Costco, got my $550 back, and got the new $600 one. Actually, I got the $600 one online first, so I can plug it in and make sure I wasn't out of Wi-Fi for a while. So this is the one I got, and I like it quite a bit, and I love their app. Okay, so what does Wi-Fi 6 do? It amplifies the signal, basically. It's 4x speed enhancement. It'll handle 50 plus devices, and a device can be a garage door opener, it can be your light switches, anything that's connected to HomeKit, cameras that you have around your house, any of those things. It'll handle easily 50 plus devices very rapidly. So it's 4x more capacity than the existing systems out there. Okay, so it supports a lot of different devices, as I mentioned, Wi-Fi hoarders. I know that Wayne, I don't know if Wayne's with us today, he said he was going to be with us. He does not have one of these systems yet, but when I told him my story of mine failing, having to get a new one, he said, you absolutely did the right thing. You need to step up if you need a new one to the new standard. So that's all I have, I believe, on the on the Wi-Fi 6 routers. And if there's any question on those, I will, and this is nothing that you need to run out and get right now because a lot of devices won't even connect to these. But interestingly enough, the iPhone 11 does. So the 11
Okay.
does, of course the 12s will.
Okay, Dee Dee, you have a question.
Yeah, do I unmute or can you hear me? Oh,
You're
can you hear
unmuted.
me? Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to know, those came in a 2-pack, Mitch. What do you do with the second one? Do you use it for an external out in the garage or something?
Well, you can use it wherever you want, as long as it's within range, and I think out in the garage would be in range, but I have one in the room I'm in right now, which is my office, and then about 30 foot behind me is our main TV, and on top of that TV stand behind a plant, so my wife can't see it and complain. I have the second module. And so that second module covers the master bedroom, the guest bedroom, and all the stuff on that side of the house. And this one covers the kitchen, my office, and probably the garage. I know it'll cover out in my lanai and pool area because they cover a lot longer distance than the other ones.
Okay.
So I hope that it came in a 2-pack. If you have a house that's 2,500 square feet or under, or 3,000 square feet, you could probably get by with one. It depends on where you locate it. Now, again, you've got to plug it in to the first nodule has to be plugged in to your modem with an Ethernet cable. So if you're wherever that is where it has to be. And in my case, that's on one side of my house. And so I have a second module on the other side. I hope that
Gotcha.
answers that question.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Michael Slider, you're next.
Yeah, I have an XB6 router from Comcast, and they've said that they have a new XB7 router that will be faster, and I'm wondering whether or not that is also the new Wi-Fi 6.
That's something you would have to ask them.
It's in beta testing right now, so they haven't released it.
It could be. I know this is compatible with their stuff because it works, and I have Comcast. But usually the router is not something that necessarily needs to be. It needs to be more compatible with your modem. And my modem is a DOSIS 3.1 Aries. It is compatible with Comcast. But that's something you would have to ask Comcast.
I need the Comcast router because I use Mocha signals for distribution through the cable in the house.
Okay. And I don't know if this handles that or not. I mean, if they're saying it doesn't, it doesn't.
Do you know if it's compatible with the pods that Xfinity is selling?
I don't know what pods they're selling. I know that Google's system is out with Wi-Fi 6. They're the little round ones. I know that, of course, Linksys is out, and there are a couple others that are out. Again, if you get on Google and just put in Wi-Fi 6 routers, you're going to, and put in reviews, and you'll get, there's a couple sites that are reviewing like the 4 major ones that are out there. And they all get pretty good reviews.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I have a question, Mitch. Do you know what devices are presently compatible with Wi-Fi 6?
I know that the iPhone 11 is. I'm assuming that my 11 Pro iPad is, but I'm not sure. But I know that the iPhone 11 series is, and that means, of course, the 12s are. And I haven't checked any of my other devices. I mean, they all work with this because they're backward compatible. But a lot of them just, when I talked to Wayne, he said, yeah, a lot of the new devices are just now coming out with the capability to do this. So if you have an old device like my garage door opener, I'm sure it's working on the slower level, even though I have the Wi-Fi 6 routers in place.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, I don't see any more raised hands, so you can proceed.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about subscriptions and iCloud backup. We've talked about these things before, and I'm just going to go into a live demo on this. So I'm going to go to settings. Settings is in the bottom menu. And there's the settings. And I want to go up to the top and go to my name. And I want to go to subscriptions. This is where you find your subscriptions. And I don't know about how you all out there, but I'm getting subscribed to death, or at least my checking account is. And so the ones that are active are the first 4 there. So I get YouTube Red because I do a lot of YouTube things, viewing videos, and it's not cheap. It's like $12 or $13 a month, and it takes out all the advertisements out of YouTube's. But I can tell you that I watch YouTube's all the time, and to me, it's worth it. I have Cycle Meter. I ride bikes. So this renews every year, and it's, I don't know, it's $5 or $10 a year for cycling, running, and so on. I have Apple TV Plus, which they gave me for free for a year. Last year when I bought a phone, and I think they've recently made that available to everyone. I think I saw that on a blog this week. So if you don't have it, you might check and see if you can get it for free right now. And then I have iTunes Match. I had that and dropped it and went to iTunes Music, and I found I just wasn't using it enough. I had 15 or 20,000 songs in my personal library. So I just dropped the iTunes music subscription and went back to the Max. The Max is $25 a year or so, and the other is $100. And just decided it wasn't. If I wanted a new song, I found out I was getting about 8 or 10 new songs a year. I can just buy them. Okay, then it does give you a listing of the ones that have expired, that I have intentionally let expire because I didn't want them anymore. So Carrot Weather, a lot of people like that. I've got enough weather apps to get dizzy when it's raining out, and all of them tell me something different every time I look at them. I had MyFitnessPal for a while. I had a stock app that was a tracker that I wasn't happy with the way it was working. I had Calm, which I didn't care for. Apple News Plus, that's where you get all the magazines, and I found out I just wasn't using it. RoboKiller, I got rid of that one. I just use the AT&T spam, and it's free and it works okay. And I'm gonna go over a better way to control spam in a minute. And then I had a VPN that I got rid of, and I got another one I just am about ready to get rid of. And I had the Apple Music subscription. So I wanted to just go over that because a lot of people, they just never look at their subscriptions, and they're paying for this stuff every year. So this is where you find it, right there under subscriptions, the 4th item down. Any question on subscriptions?
I don't see any questions,
Okay.
so go ahead.
Next thing I wanted to go over was just quickly iCloud. You'll notice I have literally everything on my iCloud. I get 2 gigabytes of usage. I have 3 people on there, myself, on the family plan deal, which is really nice. I have myself, my son, and my wife. And so we've got plenty yet that we could use. Now, the very important thing down here is iCloud backup, the bottom item there. I'll turn that on, and it shows that this was last backed up yesterday at 6:21 p.m. And that's, in order for it to automatically back up, it has to be connected to your cable, charging cable, and you have to be in Wi-Fi. Okay, so I just wanted to go over that because that's very, very important that you do that. And a lot of times when people go in there and they say, geez, my phone hasn't backed up for 2 months, it's not because they haven't plugged it in at night in Wi-Fi, it's because they're out of storage. So it's something you got to watch. Any questions on that?
I don't see any questions.
Okay. The next item I want to go over is the best way to control spam. And I have to get to my phone to do that, so bear with me while I switch devices. There we go. Okay. Well, let's go back to that just for a second. So here's what you were talking about, Eckert, and you can see my capacity is 128 gigabytes and I'm using 53. That's where you find this. If people want to know where to find that, it's you go into your settings and go into general and go into about. And that's where your serial number is and your storage and like all your photos, videos, songs, and so on. Now, let me go back out to this spam, Ultimate Spam Catcher. And you go down in your settings until you go till you see the phone. And I'm going to tap on that. And there's a setting down here, and this is the one I want to talk about. It's in green. It says silence unknown callers. Calls from unknown numbers will be silenced. They'll be sent to voicemail and displayed on the recent call list. Incoming calls will continue to ring from people who are in your contacts, recent outgoing calls, and Siri suggestions. When you turn this on, and I think a couple people, I think Sheeta might want to jump in here on this with a comment. This really stops 99% of your spam. Most spam people, when they call, they will not leave a message. Some of them had started to leave a message. That's fine, they're real easy to delete. The only inconvenience to this is if I call, say, my doctor today, and I say, well, give me a call back on this, I don't know what number he's going to call me from. He's in my contacts, but he might call me from a different phone. So what I would do would be just simply go in here, turn this off, just like that. And then once I get that important call that day or the next day, just go right in and turn it back on. And even if I forget to turn it off, he will leave a message. Hey, it's Dr. Jones, and I got your results. Give me a call back. So this has worked. I've been using this. I was reluctant to use it, but I started using this, and I'm telling you, I love this feature. So Sheeta, can you comment on your experience with this?
Yes, I can. And I do remember when you were reluctant to start this. And I was a little apprehensive as well, but this has just been the greatest thing. My phone does not ring like it used to. I get like you said, the spammers don't leave a message. It has really made me more appreciative of my phone because I just don't get those extra spam rings that I used to. So I turn it on. If I am expecting a message from someone important, they usually leave a message. So it has worked pricelessly. All right.
Yeah, and the other thing you can do is if you're on with somebody, you can say, if you're going to call me back, what number you're going to use, and you can always put that temporarily in your phone book as well as a way around this.
I would agree with you guys. I think it's a great way to go, and it's also you're being polite when you're in places where you're with other people, and it keeps your phone from ringing 10,000 times. Good idea.
Any more questions on controlling spam calls? I still use the AT&T free app. I might even get rid of that because this works so well, and I don't need it to flop up and say, oh, this might be a spam call, because if it's one that's not in my phone book and I've got that switch turned on, it's just going to stop it. What I'm looking for is the same kind of thing for text messages, because I'm getting more and more scam text messages for, particularly for marijuana and those kind of products.
Okay, Mitch, it's 12:34.
Okay, yes, and we have time for some open questions on iOS. Oh, I will mention, I didn't go into iOS 14 at all. I'll probably do that in my June meeting. There haven't been a lot of confirmed rumors yet. It'll be released in June. Unfortunately, it'll be released after the meeting because they pushed back the date until I think the 20th or 22nd for developers this year, and they're going to do it all online, which will be interesting.
right.
But one of the things I did read is they're going to do a major overhaul of text messaging. And one of the things that they might be doing, which would really be great, is you might in the future be able to pull back a text message and change it. So that would mean if I sent out a message to Joe Blow and said, you know, I think this was really crazy what you said, I can pull that back and say, I just don't think it was appropriate what you said. You could just pull it back and delete it. So if they come out with that, I think it would really be great. But I know that they're planning on significant improvements to messages, and I know that they're planning on a redesign of the homepage, and they're planning on being able to look at apps like you can on your watch if you're in the list mode of looking at apps and just scrolling, just seeing all your apps listed alphabetically. I know they're working on something like that for the phone, that you could get into that kind of a mode.
Okay, Mitch, we have 3 questions that we'd like to get to before time runs out. Michael Schneider, you're first. 1 question, please.
There is one issue that unfortunately causes a real problem with the silence unknown callers. I like to use it, but I had to stop. If you ever use tech support, or if for any reason, let's say you have an automatic callback, let's say you call up JetBlue and they say, oh, we'll call you back and you'll get a call from us. You have no way of getting that call back if you use the unknown caller, because 800 numbers are automatically blocked, and you can't just have them go to voicemail, because you defeat the purpose of trying to get back to whoever it was you wanted. So you have to leave it off in those cases almost all the time.
Yeah, I agree. And when and that's a case, that's a perfect example of when I've gotten very used to just going into settings and clicking that off until I get that important call, and then turning it right back on. But if you forget, you're going to miss an important call. Next question.
Okay, James Corsica, can you go ahead?
Hi, Mitch.
Hi, Jim.
Just to add to your subscription nightmare, I want to remind you that if there are Verizon customers out there, you get a free year of Disney Plus, and that's a commercial-free subscription. So it's certainly well worth the money.
Yes, I've read about that. Unfortunately, I'm not a Verizon person, but I think that that's a really good, a good deal.
It's a good deal. Okay, thanks.
Since I have you on, you've probably read this. They are supposed to be coming out with a new, enhanced, more powerful Apple TV box and hopefully a redesigned remote. I don't know when that's going to come, but it's been rumored.
Yeah, the rumors include a bigger memory, so like 64 and 128 gigabytes. But again, right now it's still rumor.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Scott, you're next.
I have a general question, Mitch. My iPhone is an iPhone 10 and the version is 13.4.1. My iPad Air, when I just checked the software, is version 12.4.6 and it says your software is up to date. I don't understand that.
The Air could just be using a slightly different variant of the software since it's an Air as opposed to an iPhone. That would be the only thing that would come to mind for me.
It's a different operating system.
Yeah, for the iPod.
So the iPad and the iPhone
For the iPad, it could be, yeah, the iPad is actually a different operating system now. They split it last year because it has different functions. You know, when you go and you can do the screen sharing and have multiple screens showing on the page, you can't do that stuff on an iPhone. And so they actually split and made some differences in those systems.
Okay, thank you. So this makes sense then.
What model iPad is this, Scott?
Well, let's see.
Is it an old model?
It's an older model. Yes, it's an iPad Air.
Yes, there's, as Mitch was saying, there's definitely an iPad OS operating system and an iPhone operating system. Some of the older model iPads aren't able to update to the iPad OS. So those are the discrepancies. They just can't handle it.
Okay, thank you.
So the
welcome.
solution to that is to open up your billfold.
Okay, Mitch, you got another question. All right,
Yes.
Thomas Hopkins, go ahead.
Yes, Mitch, thank you for your presentation. It was very good. I did notice when you did screen mirroring that you put out some of the personal information on your phone. And, you know, there's one screenshot that had your model number and your serial number. My question is that when we put out the YouTube videos, you know, are they only accessible to the Naples Mug group? Or
Well,
are they general, and can we delete that information so it doesn't get out there on a YouTube video?
I think George can block that out. Can't you, George?
Yes, please. Yeah. Please try to send me an email to remind me, though. It becomes a sort of a nightmare to do, but we'll figure it out.
And thanks for pointing that out. I didn't
Yeah.
even think about that when I pulled it up. I knew that I didn't even notice that.
Okay,
Yeah, that
5
was-
minutes.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, I want to mention one more thing because I got a couple more minutes. I had a problem the other day with my VPN, and the one that I use is encryptme.com, or it's encrypt.me, and it's rated very well at the Apple Store. I've used it for a couple of years. Long story short, I wasn't getting connected to the internet, and I got on with Apple, and I had troubleshooted a lot of things before I got on with them, and happened to notice that when I opened up my settings area that it kept on flashing on VPN and off, and as soon as I deleted that app, my Wi-Fi all started working again. And so the guy at Apple told me, he said, sometimes those VPNs can disrupt your system. And I'm planning on moving over to Tunnel Bear, which I think is a better one. I wasn't going to do it until the fall. because that's when my subscription's up on Encrypt Me, but I think I'll do it sooner. So I wanted to mention that. I want to thank everyone for coming. We got 3 minutes left. If anybody has an urge.
I don't see any questions.
Scott? No?
I don't see any
Scott.
questions.
Scott?
Scott.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, Scott.
There we go.
Okay. Quick comment about Apple TV. Mitch said you told me I should open up my billfold and probably buy a new iPad. Well, I did open it up to buy the newest version of Apple TV with the new remote control. I don't know if there's a newer one that will be coming out soon that was alluded to, but the new one is just terrific, and it's light years better than the previous Apple TV that I had.
Yeah, there's a new one that's coming out.
Always happens.
It always happens that way. There's always a new one. So I thank you for your comment. I thank everyone for participating.